there are children here today in service, and they're probably going to make noise, and like that. How cute is that? All right? And that was actually one of the dads. So, but just enjoy it, because pretty soon they stop making those cute noises, and they start making those other noises, which are like, what do you mean? What do you book? All that kind of stuff. Okay, we're going to try to help them before they get to that stage. All right? Before they know everything, they know nothing. But they do know one thing, and that's mom, right? So we're going to hear kids today. It's okay. Enjoy it. It should give you a reason to smile. It's going to give us all a reason to smile. I love watching them when they're dancing and just enjoying the time. But sometimes we all wish we had that childlike faith. So let's enjoy that together. Okay? Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. That was a female introduction as we started into this. Let me hear this energy drink. It's not mine. But we want to make sure that we start off with Mother's Day. I'm going to tell you a story you may not know. I go back with a family way back when it comes to ministry. And they are my Jarvis family. Mama Jarvis always was on whenever we were on mission trips. She made sure all of our kiddos stayed hydrated. It's a very important thing to have, because a parent, if they give you their child for a mission trip, the goal is they give them to you alive and you want to bring them back alive. And so, not that they died and you brought them back alive, but you brought them back living. Okay? So Mama Jarvis always did that. Her husband, who I call Whale, that's not really his name, but we combined two names together and I liked it better, so we combined it. So her husband was on the pod squad whenever we were doing things together, and then her daughter and son, they were just like the best, like example of ministry within a school. They were in an inner city school in Garfield, and that entire school embraced me all the time. And I was a guy walking around with the Bible, and it didn't matter, and it was just wonderful. So this Jarvis clan, who I've known for years and years and years, I'm going to share with them something today, because they have to be here because they're part of an extended family that's dedicating a child today. But what they may not know is that Anna Jarvis is the woman that invented Mother's Day. And so, which is the greatest thing ever, because now their family can walk around and go, like Donnie, who's not here, Donnie's not here, right? But I call him the Don. Donnie can walk up and say, hey, I'm Donnie Jarvis. My family invented Mother's Day. I mean, wouldn't that stop you? You go, whoa, what do you mean you invented Mother's Day? Well, Anna Jarvis was a woman who looked around in the early 1900s, and she's like, there's an occupation that is out there that does not get its due. And it's one of the two toughest jobs in the world. There's no pay scale on it. There's no minimum wage on it. Your hours never end. It is 24/7. It starts from the time that you take the job until you quit breathing. It never, ever stops. It comes in the form of one generation. It gets passed to the next generation, and maybe a next generation, and a next generation. It is a never-ending occupation, and that is that of being a mother. And so when she patented and coined the phrase Mother's Day, it was very important for her to put the apostrophe, so it was Mother apostrophe S, because it's not in the general sense, it's in the specific sense. So for today, you were challenged. You saw the sign when you came in, it said, bring your favorite mom. How many of you here have a favorite mom? Oh my gosh, if you don't have your hand up right now, you're going to hell. How many of you have a favorite mom? Oh my gosh, good, I just saved you all from hell. What was that all about? Some of you are going, I mean, you have to have a favorite mom. Okay, let me ask you another question. How many of you moms know that you're the favorite mom? Like, I have 3 boys, and my 3 boys are mama's boys. And it's okay, I'm great with that. I thank the Lord I have one little girl, and she's daddy's girl. So it seemed to even out 3-1, because those boys maybe need a little more love, but they know the love of their mother. So when Anna Jarvis put this day aside just for moms, it was specific to each mother. And this is something that every little girl dreams about at some point in their life. But guess what? Anna Jarvis got very disgruntled over time. Because what she saw was, instead of this being a time when people would spend that moment with mom, the card industry got hold of it, and all of a sudden, all the things that was meant to say from you to your mom, from your heart, all of a sudden came in a little thing that you opened up. And it was like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted to say. Love, son, love daughter. And those are the words I wish I could say. Those are the words that I didn't really know how to say. All those things came out in a greeting card. So the greeting card industry boomed. But the intent for her was to go to write a note to your mom. So I'm just going to share this with every guy, every child, everyone that's here today. This is the challenge within the challenge. I want you to write a note to mom today and share with her the things that mean the most about her to you. Deanna is a school teacher. She teaches 3rd grade at Coventry. So this week, she did this in a modern sense. She took an iPad, and each of the kids got to type something up. And so they sat in front of the screen that says, I love you because, and then the kid held it right there, and you could literally see the reason they love mom in just a few words. And the other thing about that, parents, is that you could see the love language these children have. I love you because you buy me things, right? That was on their butts, but that's a love language. Their love language is gift giving and gift receiving. I love you because you say nice things and you're awesome. Right? We can say that about mom. That is someone there who encouraging words of victory. I love because you come to my games and you spend so much time with me. That's a kid that their love language is quality time. So in these letters that you're writing to mom, you have the opportunity to find out just what it is in the way that you can love your kids. And it means the world to that mom and to that child. Because now it's in your writing. And it's something that's a keepsake for mom that she can turn back to remember when. Because those things mean so much. So, did you get a card today? Absolutely. Was it easy to get a card? Sure, as it was. And this goes for spouses as well. For you dads that know that your mom is a bomb, your wife is a bomb, and your mom is a bomb, you need to take the time to write them a note. And you need to let them know why they mean so much to you, even though they may be your wife, as the mother to your children. Especially the older that they got, because once again, you never stop being a mom. What ends up happening is that one door closes, another door opens, and a new chapter starts. Share that with them. It may be short and sweet, but it may mean the world to them. So that's your challenge and the challenge for all the guys. But Mother's Day, that's where Mother's Day came from. That is the background of Mother's Day. And the intent was to love and everything about it. So I'm going to share with you today one of the greatest Mother's Day stories ever. And it comes from within this story. So anytime we turn to God's Word, we can see what God intended, and at the same time, just how important our moms are to us. And here's the thing. Most of you already know this. Most of you already understand that. For some of you, as far as women, you're sitting there going, I never looked at it that way. And I'm going to attempt to look at this from the view of a mom. It's the one thing I can't be. I've got the other difficult occupation. I'm the father. That's in June. Okay, we're all going to be sitting in recliners. We're going to be laying back. It's going to be a remote control message. We're going to love it, right? We're looking forward to it. Today is about the moms. This is about their role and their occupation. You're going to be able to see just how God intended and what He intended for those that are moms. So for you young teenagers, or for you younger students that, moms or being a mom is down the road, if you're 13, we're hoping it's 15, 17, 20 years when everything, you're ready to go, whatever it might be. But at some point, sometime, you have that first little child that you can look back and say, okay, this is what God intended. And that's why at the end of today, we're going to dedicate these children. So if you would turn your Bibles to Exodus chapter 2. One of the first books written in the Bible. Moses is the actual author of this book, and he wrote the first 5 books which are known as the Pentateuch, and this was the law that people used at the Old Testament times. Whenever they read from something and they shared different things, these were the books that they used. So Exodus chapter 2, right at the very beginning, we're going to find out Moses is the writer of this book, but at the same time, this is about his birth. And yet you wouldn't even know that it's about his birth going through. Right at the very beginning, it says, Now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. So the first thing that we see is that this family is literally in the lineage of the chosen people. These are the Hebrews. These are the Israelites. And so they married within the tribe, and they are going to have a baby. It says when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. Now it seems like a very odd thing to do, because usually when we have a baby, we want to show that baby, right? We all have that Lion King moment where we want to take the baby and go, look, and hold up over the edge like, oh my goodness, here's my son or here's my daughter, because we're so excited about that. And the older your kids are, the more quickly you want to do that. When we had Chandler, when we first had him, you want to keep him out of sight, out of public, and you don't want him to get every bug. So when are we going to start taking him to church? It might be 2 months, it might be 3 months. Then you have your second one, you're like, I can do it in a month and a half. Third one you can have, in a month. The fourth one, we had him on a Sunday morning, let's just bring her. What's really the big deal? Clean her up, let's bring her in. And it changes, right, over time. But see, we all want that time where we say, this is my child. And yet this woman, the first thing that she did was hide her child. The reason that she hid her child is because at this time, Pharaoh was overseeing everybody. He was the main guy in the world because they're in Egypt. And so he was the king, and in his mind, he was also a god. But when he looked around, they had slaves, and the slaves were the Hebrew people. It was very easy to tell the difference between a Hebrew person and an Egyptian person. Their skin color was slightly different, their skin tone was different, their hair was different, their body shape was different. You could tell the difference between the two. When he looked around, he was like, all of our slaves that we had that are Hebrews, there's more of them than there are of us. And so then Pharaoh started panicking a little bit. He's like, if that happens to where there gets to be too many of them, then they can start taking us over. Or if somebody else invades, they could join them and they could completely slaughter us. And if that happens, I'm out of a job, I'm out of a cool palace, I'm out of making all the rules, and I lose my God standing. That can't happen. So he went to the midwives, and at the time the midwives were who handled all the births. And the midwives were the ones who could not have children of their own. They were also the Hebrew women because the Hebrew women were very much more understanding, they were kinder, they were gentler, it was their society they were from, and their culture. So they delivered all of the babies. And so they told midwives, if it's a boy that the woman has, you kill the child. If it's a girl, we can keep it. So any boy that's born, you kill it. And the girl, we're going to keep alive. Well, imagine the pressure if you're a midwife. Every child that is born, you've got to make a decision. So some of them would start down this path, and the others realized we cannot do this. And more so, the midwives, because they were the chosen people, realized we can't do this. So they took the boys, and they said, you've got to put them into hiding. And so here is this woman, she's just had a baby, and she realizes she has to put him into hiding. Before she does that, though, there's something that we find out about a mom, and we find out about every mom. She says this, when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. So before she's ever thought about hiding him to protect him from slavery or even worse, death, she looks at her child and she says, this is a fine child. Some of the versions you may have says, this is a beautiful child. There's never been a mom that I've ever met anywhere after they've had a baby that said, man, I had a really ugly baby. Right? Now I do have one friend that admitted this later. And this is what she told me. She goes, I lied. I just lied. I had a baby, and I looked, and I'm like, that is an ugly baby. And then she's like, I can't tell you about the ugly baby. So they get like, oh, it's beautiful. She's like, oh, okay, And she's like, I knew he was ugly because he looked like my husband. And it was like, he's like standing there. I'm like, I don't even know, what do you say to that? But she said, but then there was something that took place. That baby was with me. And so the more time the baby was with me, I knew the baby was going to get better looking because it was going to be a reflection of mom. And I'm like, okay, there we go. So, but it doesn't matter what the child looks like. You as a mom will find the beauty in your baby. When Chandler came out, they had to use one of those suction cup things on him to pull him out. And he came out, and he looked like a Shriner. And I was like, did we get a free car with him? How does that work? And so our first question was like, because he has a big knot thing up on his head, we're like, does that go away? Because we missed that week in Lamont. Like, all you had to think about, like, thank goodness. But Deanna found the beauty in him. He has so much hair, and he's got big chubby cheeks. We find the beauty. Mothers find the perfection in their kids. Now, think about this even to this day. Dad, you're at a baseball game, your kid strikes out 3 times, he makes an error, he throws the ball away, he follows it, he does whatever it is. And the first thing you're doing is you're like, you gotta do this, you gotta handle this, you didn't block down here, you didn't handle that, you didn't swing with 2 strikes, you didn't protect, on, and your wife's going, you look so cute in your uniform. You look nice on it, you just look so good in yellow. I'm so glad our team's yellow this year. You're like, what are you talking about? Moms find the perfection. By the way, that was not my impression of Deanna, just so you know, so I go on, when you meet Deanna, you'll know that. But we do. Moms will find that perfection in their child. The story continues, says, but when she could hide him no longer, because they get to 3 months, they get to where they're a little more active, and they want to roll around, and they want to get out, they just want to go. She realized, I can't do this any longer. So she could hide him no longer. She got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Let me stop here for a second. It's at this point that we find out that Moses' mom was a religious mom. Now that doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, it didn't say anything about God. It didn't bring up God anywhere in there. It didn't bring up the Lord did this. It didn't bring up a miracle. There was no burning bush. There was nothing that was taking place in this. But she made a basket And out of that basket, she also put tar and pitch into it. The same word that is used for that papyrus basket, the only other place that it is used anywhere in the Bible is when Noah made his ark. So this exact thing that she is doing is she is following something that has been passed on from God, because they don't have a Bible at this time. It's being passed on orally. So she knows that story. She believes that God can deliver. And so she literally makes this small ark for her child. And what does she put into it? She puts in tar and pitch. The river that they're on is the Nile River. When the Nile would rise, there was a silt and a soil that was underneath it. And so when the water would come down, that silt and soil would stay there. And so on the banks of the Nile, that is where you would grow all of your crops. And it was grapes, and it was figs, and it was everything that you could imagine. But God provided that. And so that same silt she used to put in the bottom of this little ark. And after it's out there for a little while, the sun beats down and it hardens it up. And then at that point, she puts on what's called a pitch. The same pitch that would be put on Noah's ark. That pitch, that word, means atonement. So literally, she at this time realizes that God can take care of this. So the next thing for a mom that we see from her, not only is she this person who's going to go before God with her child, but she knows that God can protect her baby. And for mamas that are here right now, it doesn't matter what it is. You can say whatever you want. You can cuss you out. You can say bad things about you. But the first time you have anything negative to say about your child, the claws come out, right? Come on, Mom. How many moms have said that? That's it. Bear claws are coming out. It's on. Okay? Sweetie, that girl or that guy over there is 6'5", 270. I'm pretty sure he's in the MMA heavyweight championship. Gamma's rolling up her sleeves, right? You guys are all be the same way. It's on. We're coming after it. You will do whatever you can to protect your child. I had a friend of mine who went salmon fishing up in Alaska. And all the pictures he was showing me, he would fish, and then right next to him would be a grizzly bear the size of a Volkswagen Beetle Bug, and they're up getting their fish, and he's catching his fish. And I'm like, they're like 30 or 40 feet from there. Are you nervous? He's like, no, they were getting their fill and we're getting ours. But he said the weird thing is they would catch a fish, and every time they would catch a fish, they would clean it, they would have to walk back to their cabin and put it up in their cabin. Now the cabin they stayed in were literally on these stilts, which stilts were trees, and they were cut off even, and then they put the cabin on top of it. And instead of windows, they would have plywood, and the nails would face out. That way the bears could not push it in. So each fish he would catch, he would go back and they would put it in. It was pretty exciting. It was kind of cool. Them fishing right down stream from these grizzlies, and they would walk back. And he got to the point where he was like, I was so comfortable on these grizzlies, I didn't think anything about it. He said that one day he was walking down and he saw a grizzly on the other side of the road, and he's just walking by the sand. He's like, they've got their fill, it's not even check me out. And all of a sudden, the grizzly kind of looked up a little bit and made him stop. And then he started looking around, and he noticed that on the other side of the road were the grizzly bear cubs. And he's in trouble. Because if those cubs come this way, he is now between those cubs and that mama. And that mama is going to destroy anything in between. It doesn't matter what it takes. That's with every mom. We're going to protect our child. We're going to find the perfection in them. We're going to go before the Lord, pray for them, put them before the Lord, and we're going to protect them. That's a mom. The story continues, and it says, his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. I'm sorry, I skipped one part. It says, then she placed a child in it and put him in the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Now notice that there's no names so far. This is written by Moses. You think he'd say, hey, my mom did this, and my dad did this, and this is my sister Miriam. He didn't do any of that. We find their names out later, but many times in the story, we all know who mom is. But nobody knows really who your mom is. And sometimes I think in the role of moms, it's almost like a forgotten art. It's almost something that's forgotten about. It's almost forgotten the fact that we raised our kids. We went through the heartache with our kids. We put the band-aids on. We cried with our kids. We put our arms around our kids. We were there for them. And at the end of the day, who did those kids want? They wanted their mom. They wanted to be with their mom. And yet this thankless, payless, never-ending job, sometimes it doesn't have a name to it. But every mom here, you've got to remember something. Every grandma here, you've got to remember something. The world may not know you, but to someone, you are their world, and they know everything about you. The story continues and says, then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby He was crying and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Now let's back up here for a second. Pharaoh's daughter was not able to have children. And so in this society, she would be looked down upon. There's something wrong with her. There's something not right that you did. There's something that your past generations did. So for whatever reason, she's not able to have a baby. Now this is something that the mom knows about because everybody would know about this. Because in their land, she should be looked down upon. But because of her role, the role that she's in as princess, she is protected. So she has that protection of the royal family. So they know where she bathes. They know where she's going to be. They know her servants are there. So the mom puts this within these reeds where only she can find it. And once again, she's trusting God throughout this. But it's not the mom that looks on. She sends her little girl. Because if the mom that looks on, this lady's going to look and go, okay, what's going on? There's something fishy here. But instead, this young girl comes up and says, hey, did you find this baby? Now here's the other thing to remember. This is not necessarily in chronological order. It's not this happened, oh, and then this happened, and then this happened. So when it says these words, and she sees the basket, and then opens the basket and hears the baby crying, well, it's most likely that she heard the baby crying first, which would cause her to go to look, and then to pull the basket out. And so she sees this baby that's crying in there, and they realize this is a Hebrew. How does she know that? Once again, they look different. They understand that. So it says, then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? We're going to stop here for a second again. This shows us the next thing about a mother. Mom, don't we plan for our kids? I mean, don't we just see a hope in them? You know, when you have that baby, when you have that grandchild, as a grandma and a mom, you have so much hope for them. We're going to raise them right. We're going to put them before God. We're going to take all of these steps. I mean, we don't have a baby, and you have that baby. You don't take the child, look down, and go, oh, I'm going to screw you so up. I mean, you're going to be so messed up by the time you're 12. We'll be in therapy. We'll get you in rehab by the time you're 21. We don't plan that, right? That's not your plan for your child. If it is, we need to talk afterward. That's not a plan that we have. When we have that child, and you hold that baby for the first time, your world stops, doesn't it? And every time your child hurts, your world stops. And every time your child has joy, your world stops. And every time you see a smile, or you hear anger, or you hear whatever it may be, the emotion that comes out of your child, your world stops. And yet you have this plan and this hope that you have for them. And the reason I know that is because you still see that perfect child. And you will never stop seeing that perfect child. You will always have that hope for them. And you will always believe, beyond all belief, that God too is in that plan. Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here today listening to this. Which takes us to our last. And it says, yes, go, she said. And this is what the most amazing part. This mother of Moses has this down. Yes, go, she said. And the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. That's the smartest woman in the world, isn't it? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a kid. Okay, I'm going to hide him for 3 months. Then at the end of 3 months, I'm going to make him a little ark. I'm going to put him in the reeds. I'm going to hide it over there in the reeds. The prince is going to come get it. And then here's the best part. I get to raise her, and she's going to pay me to raise my own child. That's like the American dream before there was America. I mean, this is like a reality star right here. Like if she went on that Trump show, she would never get fired. Right? Smartest person ever. So she's actually now getting paid to raise her own child. And it says this last thing. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water, which is what Moses means. So for the last thing, and every mom, and you believe this in your heart, you believe that God sent you that perfect child. May not be perfect by the world standards, may not be perfect by all the things they say and do, but to you they are perfect. You believe that when you pray and put them before God, that God can handle this. And you're going to protect that child no matter what. And you have all these plans, yet at the end of the day, you realize that all the plans you had, you really have to give to God's purpose. And even though the road's bumpy at times, and even though it went this way and that way, and you were hoping it was going to go straight, at the end of the day, that's still your perfect child. And you truly believe that God's purpose is the purpose that you planned for all along. Does that mean that they're perfect? No. Does it mean that they're going to have struggles? Yeah. Does it mean that all the hopes and it can be dashed, and all this stuff can be pushed down the drain, and all those things? Absolutely at times. But at the end of the day, you truly believe that God has a purpose for your child. And sometimes as men, we can't see that. But moms, over and over and over in the Bible, it's the women that point their sons and their children to their faith. Never stop trusting and believing. And for those of you that are leading the faith and leading the charge in your family, we thank you. And for guys that are sitting here right now going, I really wish that I would do that. There's a woman that's with you or sitting next to you that is saying, it's okay, take the reins. Because you have that purpose as well, is they for someone's child. It's up to us guys at some point, sometime to take the reins and do that. But until that happens, God doesn't give us those moms. None of us are fulfilling that purpose. Ladies that have their children right now, we're about to dedicate some kids. So anyone that has their child, I want you to head next door, that they're bringing them back. Go ahead and head next door to the kids zone or the nursery or wherever your baby is right now. Come on back. When you come back, just scan the back. We're going to show a little video to everyone first, and then we're going to come out and dedicate these kids. As they're heading out, I'm going to share with you something. This is from 1 Samuel. So you can understand the importance behind what dedicating a child means. If you want to turn in your Bibles to 1 Samuel, we're going to start in chapter 1, verse 20. This is what the dedicating of a child is. Hannah, if you notice Hannah's hope next door, Hannah is someone who did not have a child. So she's praying and praying and praying. God, I want a child, God, I want a child, God, I want a child, God, I want a child. I want a child, I want a child, I want a child. To the point where Eli, who's like the main guy in the synagogue or the temple area, he looks over and is like, this girl's drunk, she's smoking something and drinking something, and get her away from me. And so she has to tell him, I haven't been drinking, I haven't been partying, all I'm doing is praying, and I've just been giving this to God, and literally her spirit is broken. She's at the point where she just has nothing left to give, and she knows the only one that can give her a child is God. That's what it says. So in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. So over and over and over for heartache, society looked down upon her. There was something wrong with her. Was there anything wrong with her? No. It's just one of those things in our world. We're in a fallen, broken world. And so some people are not able to give birth. Does that make them any less of a person? Absolutely not. Because there's nieces, there are grandchildren, there are other areas within the different part of the family you could be a mom to. You may be as good or close to as good a mom because that mom may need the help. Especially in our society where there's a lot of single moms roughing it on their own. They need that help to raise that child before the Lord. So here was Hannah, and she realized, you know what, God gave me this gift in my late age, and I made a pact with him, and that was to dedicate him to the Lord. And so she comes back, and she says, I'm going to be a person of my word. And she's just saying, because I asked for it for me. Verse 27 says this, I prayed for this child. Moms, how many times have you prayed for that child? Don't stop. They may be of age, they may be in their 20s, they may be in their 30s, they may be older. Never stop. You don't stop being a mom. But continue to lift them up in prayer. It's amazing the power of prayer that a mom has for a child and what that does. It says, I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord there. So this opportunity came to give this child to God because of her fervent prayer, because of her never-ending prayer, because she never stopped. There's going to be times when you realize kids aren't perfect, even though you see them as perfect. There's going to be times when you can't protect them. They may be in the military, they may be far away, they may live in another state. You can't protect them, and you know that you want to protect them as a mom. There could be other times when this plan you had got off the bumpy road and off the beaten path, and all the things that you wanted to have didn't happen. But in the end, you prayed and you gave to God's purpose, as only a mom can do. You dedicated them at some point, and you continue to dedicate them over and over and over. You don't buy it as a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, God, we just thank you for what dedicating a child means.